Welcome back to Outdoor Exploration. Today we're going to talk about danger and a very small sampling of the potential dangers of the wild, but especially plants. I actually came here to the bluffs on the southwest corner of the island I live on, looking for death camas, which I haven't found. But let's start with that anyway. It doesn't really matter what corner of the wilderness you end up in, whether it's coastal bluffs like this or a deep rainforest or a meadow. There will be some kind of poisonous plants or dangerous animal or something. And I just think it's really important that we don't try and eliminate those things from our environment, because they're part of it and they're beneficial. So the point of this video is to show you a few of the potentially dangerous things that are around, so that we share a knowledge of what those things are, instead of trying to just avoid the things that are potentially dangerous that we don't know about. So I sat down here. Death camas, which you can't see here because I haven't found one today, does grow around bluffs in various places, not just by the ocean. I have some up the mountain behind my house. I just didn't want to hike all the way up there today to show you. It's a lily family. It looks not very tall. You know, this grass is taller than most death camas you would find. They have long leaves like a lily. They have a little bulb that's a little bit looking like a green onion, sort of. And at the top they have a bunch of creamy little white flowers when they're blooming. And interestingly, there's another kind of camas that people harvest for food, which looks entirely different when it's blooming. It has a single blue flower that's larger. And while it's great and has little oniony-like roots that you can eat, well, not roots, bulbs, I should say, it is very, very similar looking to the bulb of a death camas. And if you don't know which it is, or if you didn't see it when it was blooming and you don't know what it should smell like, then it's a potential hazard that you could harvest a death camas and eat it and die. So, like many of these things, knowledge is what will save you. So I'm out here, and what have I found sitting around just where I am? A little bit of some kind of down. I don't know if it's owl or eagle, it could even be gull, but it's just stuck in the moss here. And also a deer bone, which reminds me there are cougars around here. I've seen cougar poop here on many occasions. A few people have seen a cougar. That's the extent of cougars around here. They've never been a problem for people, and they're part of our environment. They keep the deer in check. They probably have other beneficial things to do with the ecosystem we live in, and yeah, that's an important thing. One thing that is more dangerous to us, and I confess it's the one thing I'm actually afraid of, are ticks. And on the southwest corner, where things are quite exposed and warm here, we actually have a lot of ticks. Ticks themselves aren't so terrible, except that they, in our area, do carry Lyme disease. And Lyme disease is a horrible, horrible sickness that nobody wants to have. I have known a few people who have it, and the effects can carry even over generations if you don't manage to discover it and treat it, which is incredibly difficult to do. So, yeah. I'll leave you to figuring out how you can protect yourself from ticks, but generally don't roll around in bluffy, grassy areas, or places where ticks might live too much, and then check yourself after you do. What else would I tell you while we're here? I don't know. There's so much beautiful, so much important and interesting. And let's look at some foxglove. It's right beside us, so follow me and I will walk right up to this foxglove, which is all over the place, not just on the bluff here. It's important to remember that while bluffs, I'm sitting here talking about some of the dangerous things, bluffs are very fragile. So I'm trying not to go walking too much on the bluffs, especially now when it's starting to dry out because it's almost July. Because there are so many special little plants, including death camas, that we don't want to destroy the environment of. We need the diversity. So, speaking of, here's something that is all over the place. People think this is a noxious weed, but many of us think it's also beautiful. I, in fact, picked maybe 100 or more when they were, you know, full of blossoms last year for my son's graduation ceremony. And, you know, it's a wonderful plant. You can see I'm holding it. I am not afraid of it. It doesn't smell particularly amazing, but it does smell a little bit sweet. And yet most of us know it's poisonous. But my intention of showing you this is that while it's technically poisonous, it's also important and beneficial. In fact, its Latin name is digitalis, and many people know digitalis is a heart medicine, which is made from foxglove. And in fact, what will happen if you eat foxglove is it will speed up your heart or potentially cause heart failure. But in small doses, that same chemical can be used to restart your heart or to regulate. I'm not sure about how all of that works medically, but the point is, it's not dangerous. It's not dangerous to smell or hold. It's certainly not dangerous to have in our landscape. It's just a wonderful plant. Maybe don't eat it. Knowledge, it goes a long way. So, having said that, I would now like to take us away from the bluff to a more wet and foresty part of the island and see what I can find to show you over there. Some people will tell you that eating red berries is a bad idea because the color red tells you they're poisonous, and I think most of us know huckleberries aren't poisonous, red huckleberries, which is handy because I'm hungry right now. We've been going around making this video for a while. However, beside me are some other red berries that are definitely poisonous. These are red elders, which are indigenous here and abundant here on the west coast of BC. And they are related to the European black elder, which is used to make elderberry syrup and elderflower water and wine and all kinds of things. And also you'll see birds eating them. It's so sunny, it's hard for me to see them, but hopefully you can. These are small. They'll get much bigger as they ripen. They're quite new. And the whole elder plant actually has a lot of hydrocyanic acid in it, which turns into cyanide when you eat it. And that sounds terrible. However, so do apple trees and many other things. So it isn't necessarily a terrible thing. In fact, I know of people who do cook these and create food out of these. I'm not sure how healthy that is, but some people apparently do. And yet it's a poisonous tree. Like we don't eat a bunch of apple seeds, we don't eat apple leaves and branches, we shouldn't be eating elder shrubs or leaves or berries, in my opinion. At least not the red ones. Yeah, so yet another. This is a western yew. It is the only conifer in our area that I know of that is poisonous, and it actually is very, very common in landscaping. A lot of people know it as boxwood, and you get these lovely little hedges people have in those urban landscaping, and sometimes you'll find those red berries on it, which have a sort of dip in the top, like they come to an edge and then there's a hole in the middle, and those berries are actually poisonous enough to kill you if you would eat a handful of them or something. Yeah, so don't. But yew is a wonderful tree for wood. It has rather flexible and not particularly large growing trunks, but you can build things out of it, and many people do. It has particular properties that people like for woodworking. My father made our wedding well, our wedding gift, which was a bed out of yew that he harvested. So it is definitely a wonderful plant in our landscape. However, it has poisonous berries. Here is a poisonous plant that most of us have in our gardens or on the sidewalk outside the house, in the steps, anywhere. You can find this all over the place. I'm sure everybody knows it's Buttercup. There are a few different types of Buttercup, and they are poisonous. And I think it's a wonderful example of plants that we live with quite happily. In fact, many of us know the old trick of saying, however silly this is, checking how much I love butter by how much it reflects yellow on my chin. I hope it says I love butter very much, but it depends on the lighting. Anyway, buttercups are poisonous. They actually, if you eat them, and if animals eat them, can cause blisters in your mouth and your digestive tract. Nobody wants that. But we don't eat them. We have them all over the place. We probably mow them in our lawns. And apparently they're not even a problem in hay, which they're frequently in because they grow abundantly through meadows and things like that. But when they dry, the chemicals that cause the blistering actually dissipate. So apparently it's not a problem for them to be in hay. However, you wouldn't want to feed them to your chickens or rabbits or cows, you know, fresh like this. Or at least not in any great quantity. And I'm sure that animals are careful what they eat. Like, you know, they take a little nibble of things and don't eat things if they bother them. And if this caused me blisters in my mouth, I certainly wouldn't eat more of it. So, yet another one of our common poisonous plants. Not to be afraid of, but to be aware. So, it's not often that we run across, that's a terrible word, that we happen upon a barred owl on our filming, and on a day when I found that little piece of some kind of down that may have been an owl down. But here one is in the tree with, you can hear all the birds having a panic all around it while it sits there staring at us. Hi! So I thought, hopefully we can let you see it. So, now for the last family. This is family of plants, that is. This is probably the only plant I am legitimately afraid of. Luckily, it doesn't grow in very many places. I'm not too afraid to sit next to it, but this is the plant that we have around here that can hurt you just by touching you. And that is because it has a chemical in it that is photosensitizing. So quite soon after it touches you, like within minutes I think, your skin can blister up from sunlight. And who knows what it does if you eat it. This is giant hogweed, part of the carrot family, and that's my point here. The carrot family includes lots of vegetables that we love, and also some very poisonous ones. So, the hogweed, the giant hogweed I should say, is one of the worst of them, most dangerous, and yet there's another one just called hogweed, which isn't giant, or cow parsnip, I should say. This is giant cow parsnip. But the non-giant variety is actually used as a vegetable, being not harmful at all. So, just yet another reason why knowing and paying attention to what we have around us and learning all the different the different both uses and values and dangers of the many plants that we have is important to me. So this is our giant hogweed. This is a pretty tiny giant hogweed. It can grow 10 feet tall and have gigantic white sprays of white flowers on the top. If you've ever seen a carrot bloom, they have similar flowers, except, you know, they're only this tall and the spray of flowers is this big. So I'm sitting here doing a bit of social distancing with this thing, enough that it doesn't reach out and whack me, because I don't want to get any of its sap on me, however that might happen. But you can have a look at it and know that it's around. Some people grow it in their garden as an ornamental, apparently. I wouldn't want to have to deal with it, so I just wouldn't personally want that, because you'd have to be all suited up and wearing protective gear and gloves and everything in order to clear it or manage it, but it is just a part of our world. So another plant in the carrot family is water parsley, which this is growing in the water, as you can see. It is poisonous, but not so poisonous that I can't touch it. And it's very closely related. I mean, these are all carrot family, including the giant hogweed and your table carrots and other things like that. But this is quite similar to poison hemlock, which many people know is what Socrates used to kill himself. So it's, you know, it's around. It's not something that I'm afraid of because I don't go around just eating everything. Even wild animals don't go around just eating everything. They check out what they eat and they're very careful. And so, yeah, this is water parsley, yet another carrot family in our ecosystem. So, to conclude, I have brought you to my garden to show you a bunch of carrot family that we're used to eating, like fennel, which is starting to bloom, and you can see a similarity in these blossoms actually to a Queen Anne's lace or a cow parsley or giant hogweed, also to a carrot, or what else looks like that? Poison hemlock has some flowers that sort of spread out in a bunch of them like this, a little bit like this. This is a celery. This here is parsley beginning to bloom. None of these are actually open yet. They will have white flowers like this celery here is starting to have. And you know, there's lovage, parsnips, so many different plants we have in our gardens that we're used to eating and are quite closely related to the poisonous plants that we were just looking at in the wild. So there it is. My point, just to prove the abundance of both poisonous and beneficial and useful plants, and the fact that all of them can be both. Oh, I should say, actually, I think fennel, but for sure carrots and parsnips. Parsnips are also phototoxic, so they can cause you to be light sensitive. Parsley and celery contain toxins, but you know, we don't eat so much of them that we poison ourselves, and we don't eat them in ways that would make us poison ourselves. But yeah, that's life. It's full of different chemicals that are useful in different amounts, and all kinds of different animals and plants. Hello. And insects and fungi and weather and ecosystems. So that's that. Happy exploring.